I think, as is clear today, wellbeing is not one person's job or one organisation's or one sector's or one minister's. I mean, wellbeing is how we're doing as individuals, as a community and as a nation, and how sustainable that is for the future. Wellbeing is our quality of life, our prosperity, our positive physical and mental health, and sustainable thriving communities. At the What Works Centre, we work to bridge the academic, policy and practice worlds by being robust, relevant and accessible to inform decisions that can be made to improve wellbeing in the UK and that reduce misery. This is big, it's multidisciplinary and cross-sector, and so my theme for today is collaboration. The diversity of the academic and evidence base is probably unique. And brings its own strengths and challenges. There is also huge diversity in the number of decision makers and practitioners, and actually it affects everybody as members of the public who can make use of evidence to improve well-being. This means collaboration is essential if we are to make progress in this growing field of research and practice. And you'll see this collaboration evident throughout today. Even if you are not paid as part of the centre or a paying partner of the centre, you are part of this, because this is about learning together as a system across the UK. So today I kind of want to say thank you, really. I mean, firstly to Brunel University for hosting us, to Professor Louise Mansfield and Professor Christina Victor, who have led and organised today so effectively, and to all the centre's teams and colleagues, so especially Brunel, Richard and Paul at the London School of Economics, Kevin and team and the University of East Anglia, University of Liverpool with Professor Rhiannon Corcoran and Peter Kinderman, and our board and advisory panel, and the awesome core team, and all the other universities that each of those 4 leading universities work with, and other organisations. Our funders, of many of you are here, and both financially and in kind. So the Research Councils, the Economic and Social Research Council, the Arts and Humanities Research Council, Public Health England, particularly for supporting the core team, and the Big Lottery Fund, who've given us fantastic support for the future for the next 3 years in particular, but also the government departments, and this reflects the breadth of interest in the subject. So the Ministry of Housing, Communities, Local Government, Digital, Culture, Media and Sport, Arts Council, Sport England, Historic England, Work and Pensions, BEIS, Department for Education, Department for Environment, Department for Health and Social Care, Ministry of Defence, and organisations such as the Local Government Association and the Office for National Statistics just reflect the breadth of supporters on this journey. And then a wider breadth of friends and supporters that have enabled us to build a space where we can learn together across the nation, across fields and across sectors. So this includes government analysts across Government and Social Impact Task Force in particular, the Carnegie UK Trust for pioneering this work, particularly in Scotland and Northern Ireland, Pro Bono Economics, Happy City, Action for Happiness, organisations like Locality, and then Bupa, Maximus, Nationwide and BT, Arsenal in the Community Foundation and the OECD, just to name a few, and I'm sure I've missed some of you out, and apologies if I have, but thank you for being part of this. The challenge, though, is there, and even if we sometimes seem in danger of forgetting it, a lot is known about what makes for well-being at a national level, and globally, life is improving beyond recognition for millions. And a lot is also known about our individual well-being and the actions we can take personally. The public and media conversation is surprisingly sophisticated and emotionally literate. I'm going to focus on the emotional side, because this is the thing I've seen transform most, and even in the last 5 years. I mean, who would have thought Jeremy Clarkson would be writing seriously in a national newspaper about the various dimensions and aspects of happiness? Who would have thought Prince William would be speaking openly and caringly about the effect of grief? Parliamentarians sharing their experience of child loss, stillbirth, miscarriage and abortion, and being a child of an alcoholic. An adult sportsman on daytime TV crying about the experiences of childhood sexual abuse in the nation of the stiff upper lip and keep calm and carry on. The world is changing, and rapidly. But what is harder, and the bit we've been focusing on, is the space of policies, programmes, projects and approaches. What works for whom, when, how, and for how much, as Jeff said. And also how we know that. So this is all about collaboration, and learning as systems, nationwide and internationally, is essential. So I'm going to talk about 3 things today. 1, the boundary crossing nature of wellbeing and this centre. The importance of a shared understanding, or at least a clear vision of that people can follow and work to. And progress on some of the key areas that will improve wellbeing and reduce misery. So firstly, I believe the What Works Centre for Wellbeing is a world first and is genuinely world leading. We are international, UK-wide, local and hyper-local. So we work with the OECD all the way down to locality. There was a study done looking at where best practice around the world was in terms of wellbeing, and actually our devolved nations and all the nations in the UK came out as some of the people who were leading the way. And the legislation in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland is particularly interesting to watch, and it is exciting. Cross-sector nature of the work that we do, so working with academia, with governments at national level, devolved and locally. We even had contact from the parish council saying, why have you left us out of what you're doing? The answer was, it's just a lot. Civil society, very broadly, funders and those who are small community groups, all the way through to social enterprises, business sector and people themselves. What we find is that wellbeing as a subject is sticky. People take it with them from job to job, from subject to subject. It's professional and personal, and we are all people at the end of the day. There's also cross-sector in the sense of its health sector, arts, sports, jobs, business, education, housing, and that they all have their own communities, and we've been really pleased with the appetite to engage with this subject across all of those. And this is reflected in the partnerships and successes. At the Centre, we believe the purpose of government is to improve well-being. This is now clearly stated as the purpose of government economic appraisal. To quote the Green Book, economic appraisal is based on the principles of welfare economics. That is, how the government can improve social welfare or well-being, referred to in the Green Book as social value. We also believe improving wellbeing is the purpose of civil society, of charities, trusts, foundations, community groups and social enterprises. This is clearly in the purpose statements of many charitable organisations, despite what the Charity Commission say. And Samir Singh from the Arsenal Community Foundation found the same. Football in the community, voluntary community sector have not been measuring what they actually do, which is mainly improving wellbeing. Wellbeing is almost too obvious an outcome for community organisations, but we know it and we see it in our work on a daily basis. They don't measure it, especially in smaller organisations, and we've not even realised we could measure this in a meaningful or systematic way. And what is the purpose of growth in business? Arguably, the ultimate purpose of economics is to promote the enhancement of well-being. And to quote the chief economist at the Bank of England, for growth to be sustainable and strong, it needs to be inclusive and comprehensive. There is a role for public policy over time to seek to close those fault lines to achieve inclusive and sustainable rises in societal well-being. Businesses create jobs, create communities, and through their products and services, they can transform lives. Making world-class science relevant and accessible for decision makers and improve lives is a cross-sector job. The other success I think we've had, and the one that people come up to me and tell me they've had an aha moment about, is about language, concepts and measures. And we talk about translation of research. Here we can, particularly here in academia, we can get caught up in definitions, concepts and measures. But one of the successes I think we've really had is starting to make sense of all the different stories here. The rising up of the agenda of beyond GDP type movement has seen a corresponding increase of sort of well-being washing, and as well as many frameworks, tools and definitions genuinely trying to further understanding. But as our colleague from Arsenal, Samir Singh, said, we are all actually talking about the same things. This area is multidisciplinary in academia and in practice, and this can be disorientating and confusing. One of the comments we get in feedback is an aha, this makes sense to me at last. This has grounded the issues that we are grappling with, and they can start to see how they fit in and how wellbeing often describes the essence of what they do, the spark of the community, the smile on somebody's faces, the difference in people's lives. Just yesterday, someone said at the Public Health England conference, someone from business said to me that we had organised the thinking for them. The UK also has a big opportunity here. The measures we have may not be perfect, but the UK data sources are astounding. The infrastructure here is huge and we have just scratched the surface. Some of the data analysis in our research is fantastic. Please look into the worthwhile question in particular. We're the first country in the world to do that, and it can see what it can tell us, for example. We've also seen that whilst there are big gaps in what has been researched, and I find that often things that are seen as good things often aren't researched as well as things that are bad things. So this is a plea to fill those evidence gaps. This is also my regular plea to include costs, as Jeff mentioned. That with some areas, the research is still in early stages, and you can see that, but that's fine. This is how research is built. The quality of the research and evaluation where it is done, though, and from cross-sector, from academia and from the charity sector and from government and business, can be very high. And we can see this can be done. There's also, though, a large body of existing practice, and even in healthcare, where there's a huge amount of research and practice and high-level research, there's a lot of existing practice that has never been looked at in this way. So there's a lot to research, and I encourage you to make connections across the room here from academia to colleagues in practice to find out those areas where we're doing stuff anyway, where their data exists and we can really learn from it and share it. We have shown over the last 3 years that this can be done. We've shown wellbeing can be researched, evidenced, measured, evaluated, and be useful for decision making. And we've done this across a number of issues and started to develop the tools that build capacity in order to do that. These are small steps, be it to understand how to deliver programs for a particular group, for example, but they all contribute to improving wellbeing in the UK and influencing activity internationally. I'm going to talk lastly about some of the areas where we can improve wellbeing and where we're seeing some successes. And if we are to improve wellbeing in the UK, it's clear from the evidence and the practice that improving mental health, our working lives and our social health are key, and I'll focus on progress in these 3 areas. Mental and emotional health is a high priority across government and with the public, in business and in civil society. This includes perinatal mental health, so mother's mental health, and the mental health of our children and young people in schools and outside of schools. And this is important if wellbeing is going to be sustainable for the future. We spend a huge amount of our time at work, and few things are important to our wellbeing as our work. The employment rate in the UK remains high, and this is great. The UK has been great at creating jobs. And now attention is rightly turning to job quality. Actually, the UK does pretty well compared to the rest of the OECD, but this doesn't mean we should be complacent. And to wellbeing at work. So yesterday, the Prince William launched a whole set of resources around mental health at work, which is exciting to see that level of cross-sector partnership happening. And just last week, there was national recommended measures of job quality proposed. The other area we've seen big shift in is on social connection and loneliness, and Jeff mentioned the work that Brunel are doing here, which is incredibly exciting. And we have a minister now working across government on loneliness and social connection, and public campaigns promoting small moments of everyday social connection to help build those social relationships. We've also rather geekily learnt a lot about the field of knowledge mobilisation and doing it cost effectively and innovatively, partly because we've had to. We are one of the smallest What Works centres. But we've also contributed, I think, in a way to that field, in part by commissioning a systematic review in this area and taking this area as seriously as we do anything else, but using digital learning methods and collaboration and building things into processes in a way that have been really profoundly effective. The bit of research I wanted to draw attention to was the Delphi research here that Brunel did for their initial choosing of subjects for this area. But it can be seen in the growth of this thing. So in 2016, we had over 2,500 views of the website. In 2017, that was 4,000. And by February 2018, we were getting 7,500 views of the website and over 18,000 product owners. And that was February. I have to update the stats, but it's more. Over 4,000 people have attended events, courses and roundtables, and we've reached 173 countries without actually trying to do that. Although crucially, 75% of our audience is UK, and it's across the UK with Edinburgh, Cardiff, Belfast, Birmingham, Manchester, all covered in our statistics well. So the What Works Centre for Wellbeing aims to be credible, relevant and accessible, and put the needs and interests of the audience and stakeholders at the heart of what we do. And today is part of continuing to understand what we can do in the coming years that is most useful and will be most accessible to moving wellbeing further as part of an important part of decision making, and hopefully be a crucial part of the next spending review. Each small step will ultimately contribute to improving wellbeing. It'll inform our work and with our partners. The world of work isn't going away. Social connection is here to stay. Community wellbeing is increasingly important, and we're starting to understand the role of people, place and power in understanding what makes a sustainable and thriving community and being well together. And we're also here to listen today, but you can all play your part. What we've seen as to be really effective is where you have a look at what we do, come and have a look at the website, you can see. Please do share, subscribe to the website, share what you do. We can see the effect of that in the data. Feedback on what you find useful and interesting and where you're finding challenges, that's incredibly helpful so we can make stuff that actually is useful. Please try things out, have a go at evaluating stuff and share what you find so we can learn and become learning systems, and partner with people here, connect up, make this happen yourself. I hope today will stimulate new ideas and really feel like part of a growing professional community, and I really encourage you to share what you learn with everybody else. Thank you very much.